Hey, podcast listeners, I have a special announcement 1 week early for you, the loyal subscribers. For a couple of months, I've been preparing to take on an unprecedented live streaming event. In conjunction with Australia's 10th anniversary, I will be providing a live stream watch party of each and every minute of the race. That's going to be 13 hours a day of live streaming on May 10th through the 12th, Noosa time. We are going to present a full view of 515 racing, the likes of which has never been seen before. We are going to cover the race better than if you were there live. We're going to have multiple camera crews on course along with commentators at the hotspots. You'll be hearing from the man who ran around the world and longtime Australia Dream Team member Tim Franklin, as well as the voice of racing, Mr. Steve King. We have also made arrangements for a number of guest commentators to come in and share their knowledge of the Australia race and its racers. Additionally, we will be providing videos sent in by the crews to give you a full behind-the-scenes look at what it's like to be a crew member and full access to each and every racer on the course, not just the top three. And because this is a 10th anniversary special, we're going to make this an interactive watch party where people can comment live, talk to one another, and even send in their own videos to be broadcast. So if you've ever wondered what it's like to do a 515 race, this is your opportunity to see every aspect. From the dream team of staff who put it on, to the racers and the crews before, during, and after each day. As I said, we intend to bring you an unprecedented view of 515. My recommendation is set up some big training blocks and get your TVs or your computers set up on your trainer or treadmill and watch what's going to go down under. Subscribe now to the 515 The Ultra Podcast YouTube page and set up alerts for the live streams. Oh, and remember, tell your friends about this. Now today's show.
You're listening to 515, the Ultra Podcast, the show that invites you into the lives of people who make up the Ultra family. Here's your host for these conversations, Larry Ryan.
Thanks, MJ. Today's guest has completed over 200 ultra races, some of which you have likely never heard of. This guest is great. The stories are great. This is one of those episodes where you can add some new events to your bucket list. Today's Ohana guest is a seasoned endurance athlete who has completed more than 200 races and 26 world championships with several podiums. His races include 10 Extreme Triathlons, 3 Ultramans, over 50 Ironmans, and 4 times at the Boston Marathon, where he has a 2:53 PR. He also has decades of experience as an advanced windsurfer. He's been a competitive soccer player and is a Taekwondo black belt. Proud to be from Uruguay, now living in Houston, Texas, which is where he's joining me from today. Fernando Lopez, welcome to 515.
Thank you, Larry. Thank you for such an introduction. Yeah, I've done a lot of stuff. My life, maybe I'm living more than one life. That's what I said, you know. So, and on top of what you said, I'm also a professional. I have a wife. I have a dog. I have kids. I have all of the above. So there's no lack of things I've done or I'm about to do.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like you would have time to do any of that other stuff with all of those races, but great on you for managing to fit all of that kind of stuff in. That's fantastic. Knowing that you're from Houston, Texas, and you're part of the Ohana, do you have any connection with Armando Armelini?
Yes, Armando is a good friend. He became a friend when I did my first Ultraman in Florida. And when I was picking up my package, he was there volunteering, and he speaks Spanish, so I uh, I got immediately attached to him, and then he ended up being a friend, and also was my Sherpa, I would say, Norseman, one of the amazing races that we can talk about. So yeah,
Oh,
Armando
he
became a
joined you
great
on that
friend.
one. That's great.
Yeah, he's an Ultraman. He have done a lot of stuff as well. Yes.
Oh, cool. And you said your first Ultraman. What year was that one in Florida?
I did the first Ultraman into 2022.
2022. Okay.
And yes, and then and then I did the World Championship in 2023, and then in 2024 I did Arizona. So on the
Right.
Ultraman, yeah.
Yeah. And the Hawaii one in 2023, you were first in your age group and second among the men. I'm going to give some of your times here. These are nice times, and you got a fourth place overall in that race. You were a 4:13 swim, 6:14 bike on day one. You were your run was a 7:36, which was second on the run, which is great. And every time I keep saying that you were second, it's because that was the year, of course, that Simon Cochran was at the race, and being second to Simon Cochran is pretty darn good.
Yeah. That guy was fast runner for sure. I'm not a great swimmer. In fact, I didn't swim much before the race. I basically show up, and then I did a good bike, but then my running was great. I followed him as much as I could until I let him go, let's say.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah. And in that race, you also had two Canadian women ahead of you, Amy Robitaille and A.A. Girard. What was it like running with those two women or racing with them over the 3 days?
To be honest, I don't pay attention much about who is there. Or
Oh,
I mean, I don't. I competing, but I'm not. I'm like doing my thing, my race, and
right.
I remember. I think it was Amy. I think their group was checking my time on the running to make sure that they beat me,
Right.
and that I learned that after the race. But yeah, I didn't care much at the overall. Of course, I'm a competitor. I want to go fast, but yeah, I let people do whatever. Now, if I could pass them, I will. But yeah,
Right.
anyway. So great. I love when I see women. And I mean it because I'm also a coach and I coach women as well. So I love when they pass the men.
Yeah.
I'm feminist in that sense anyway. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And you were very consistent over your Arizona race in 24 and your Hawaii race in 23. I noticed your run was 7:36 in Hawaii and 7:31 in Arizona, and your total time was 27:24 and 27:16. So you can't get much more consistent than that. It must be the great coaching you're giving yourself. How do you come up with that?
Yeah, you're the first person who mentioned my times. I didn't know they were that similar. And I didn't shoot for that. I shoot for just doing the best I could. The running on the last in Arizona was impressive. I was impressed with myself. I finished first on the running, I think. There was a professional lady there, and she was. I didn't care
Yeah,
until
Michelle
I saw
Vesterby was
her.
in that race.
I didn't care until I saw her on that climb. I forgot the name.
Oh, the big
And
mountain, yes, at the end.
and when I was going down, she was going up, and then I realized she was less than a mile from me, and I was like, "Oh my gosh!" So that's when I pressed the pedal and I went for it. That's when I became competitive in that
Oh,
race.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, It looks to me like you do like the long distances. Like if there is an X in the title of the race, you want to do it. Whether it's Xterra or Extreme, whatever it is. I would like to come in and talk about some of your races that you've done so we can hear about those different locales and things. Like you did the Norseman Xtri. You've done a race called the Icon Xtri, the Swissman Xtri, Alaska Man Extreme, Iceland Extreme, Patagonia Xtri, Aloha Man. Like it just keeps going, and all the Xterras. Can you tell us about some of the fun races you've done or more memorable races you've done out of that list?
Yeah, of that list, the most memorable one is Icon. And I tell you why. And actually, I just published a podcast in my YouTube. I did the storytelling, the moth recently here in Houston, and I talk about that race as an analogy of a strong mindset and so on. But Icon is an amazing race in Italy in the Alps, and starts at 4:30 a.m. and it's dark. And the reason is so memorable for me is because the first time I tried, which was in 2021, I failed. I couldn't swim. I had to get out of the water, and I encourage you guys to watch the video I just posted, which is only 6 minutes. I talk about it, but and this is the first race I ever failed since I started 14 years ago, and out of 150 or so races, this is the first time I failed. And what happened is that's very same day, on the next day, actually, I signed up for the next year, and I came back and I did it. And to me, that's the hardest race I've ever experienced. It's hard. It has the Stelvio, which is this crazy mountain that is part of the Giro d'Italia.
Yeah, the one with all the switchbacks.
Yes. And it's just nuts. And people talk about Norseman, which is also very extreme and very complicated. And I've just done it this last year. But and, of course, I always remember the very first one that I did. And the very first one I did was Alaska Man. It's a race that is not longer. I wish it was, but and it was so hard and so incredible. But I came back and I did it again, actually. So I would say those on that. And then I did, Escape from Alcatraz and other races. But on that set, those are the ones for me that made it special. So
yeah. And with the Icon, then, what are the distances you're doing there, and what are the elevations? Obviously, with Stelvio, you're getting up there. So what kind of extremes are we looking at?
So the extreme parts is that you start at 3,000 feet of elevation of the swim. So there is lack of air already right there. To be honest, that's another thing about me. I don't even look at what it is. I just go to the race. I show up. It's a true story. So I don't
previewing the course or anything?
Never do. In all the 100, 200 races, I usually don't look at it. I just go and I do it. I show up. Sometimes it's kind of funny. Hey, where are the buoys and things like that? So I don't know. Right. And but anyway, the challenging parts of Icon are the dark, swimming in the pitch dark water, which is already in an altitude. It's cold, it's dark and complicated. Then it's an Ironman distance, but a bit further. The bike is 130 miles, I think, including the Stelvio. So I think overall is, if I'm not mistaken, 17,000 feet of altitude of the whole race. So it's just impressive. You finish at the top of the mountain on the run as well. And it's cold, it rains, and it's just nuts. It's crazy. Yeah.
And how does that compare to like the Norseman as far as maybe temperature changes and things like that? Because I know Norseman's known for being pretty cold, right? You're like swimming in a fjord and then climbing up the cliff beside it.
Yeah, no. Norseman is fantastic and it's epic. And I was a bit lucky that the temperatures were better, compared to the icon in this case. But
Yeah.
the challenging part of Norseman is jumping from a boat, and if you never done that, it's just scary, I did that escape from Alcatraz 8 times, and every time I did it, I was scared. I was nervous. I was like, oh, jumping from this boat, So, but that's one of the reasons I do this, by the way, is to um, face my fears and get
Right.
done something that otherwise I wouldn't do. So.
Yeah. And you don't do it just on the tri bike. You do it on the mountain bike as well, right? You're doing the Xterras. You've done a number of those world championships 6 times. You did something like a double. What was the double, and what was that one?
Yes, yes, yes. So I do Xterras, and I've been in the Xterra World Championship several times. It used to be in Maui. Now it's in Italy. I did that twice. Um, in some of the Xterras, the Xterra has a triathlon one day, and the next day there is a 21K trail run, and I do both. The next day I just go and do the run, and I've been in the running world championship. So, but Xterra is also extreme, but not as extreme as other things I've done in mountain biking, including Leadville 100. I did Leadville 100 3 times, and it's just one of the hardest things I ever done. And I've done La Ruta de los Conquistadores in Costa Rica, which is a 4-day race across the country from ocean to ocean.
Oh,
and
incredible.
I did Transportugal, it's across Portugal in 8 days. And I'm about to do Cape Epic, which is the Tour de France of mountain biking, and I'm going in this year in March, in my birthday, actually. So I've done a lot of mountain biking. Yeah, and it's one of the things I like the most, actually. So.
So which bike do you prefer to be on then? Is it the mountain bike? We will get that answer in just a minute. But first, I want to let you know that last night, prior to the release of this episode, I did a live catch-up with Fernando about Cape Epic, a race that he just mentioned. We recorded this conversation a few months back, so I wanted to get the story. If you did not join us during the live, then check it out on my YouTube page. Links are in the show notes. Also, check out Fernando's YouTube page. He does great videos of these adventures that he's talking about. Okay, back to my conversation with Fernando. Which bike does he prefer? So which bike do you prefer to be on then? Is it the mountain bike?
Yes. I think, mountain biking is more fun overall. But I love bicycles. I just love to see them. Since I was a kid, I raced BMX. Although part of the story is that I didn't have money. My family was blue collar, and to compete in BMX, I had to rent a bike, and I rent a helmet, and I competed, and then I went back to my job. I was very young, but I worked. And now that I have a good job, and I buy good bicycles and buy the best bicycles I can. So.
How many bicycles do you own, should I ask?
Yeah, my wife is not around, so I'll tell you. Well, she knows. But yes, I have 7 bicycles, and my preferred brand now is Pinarello, and I fall in love with Pinarellos. Who doesn't? And but I have bikes of all brands, Specialized, and I just love to see the bicycles. It's fun. It's kind of art for me,
Yes, yeah. And do you do special paint jobs on your bikes as well?
No, in one of my tri bikes, we put the Forever Tri. Since I founded Forever Tri, we started out, which is the way I train and coach people. But no, I haven't. I'm looking forward for somebody that can paint my bike. So if somebody's listening, I want to work with me on that. Give me a shot.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah. How about names? Do you do names for your bikes?
No, I don't. I don't do. I don't have time for names. No, no, I don't do that.
In speaking about your mountain biking and stuff, I saw you also have done like some, I guess they're ultra extreme mountain bikes, maybe like a 24-hour bike ride on the mountain bike. Like, how do you do a 24-hour mountain bike ride? That's gotta just kill the body.
Yeah, I forgot those. Yeah, I done many 24 hours here in Texas called Rocky Hill. Yes, I actually won it a couple of times, I think, or more. And yeah, that's one of the hardest things I've done as well. It's always the hardest one. But I do the same thing. I show up, literally, I put my car as close as I can. My wife doesn't want to go to those because it's just waiting for nothing. And I put, some Coca-Cola, some chocolate, some whatever I could eat in every lap. And you go, the winner is the one that do the most laps. And then you go through the night. And, on everything I do, I think for me, I race with my mind. I don't race with my body. So it's all about that. And I finished the races before I even started them. So, and I've done a lot of those. The one is coming up in 2 weeks. Is Dirty Dozen. Is a 12-hour race mountain bike, and and I won some of those as well. So yeah.
Oh, nice. How do you manage to keep track of all the races you're doing? You must have a giant calendar in your garage or something.
I didn't until recently. The last few years, I do in my phone. I put the list in notes, and I start adding them as the year start. I had 10 races this year. Last year I did 19, and this year is the first time, a few months ago, I decided to look back and see how many extreme races, meaning races more than from a half Ironman up, more than 4-hour races. And the number was 200. I'm like, oh my God. One thing I didn't do, I still wonder, is how much money I spend on all of that. And I didn't do that number. I don't think I will anyway.
You don't want to do that number.
So, but that's it. And then in my website, I keep a list, and even in my LinkedIn. So try to keep the list live and for the big things I've done.
Yeah. I did look at your LinkedIn, and I couldn't even figure out, what do you do for work? How are you paying for all these races? Like it was a little bit vague as to what you do.
Well, as we speak, I work for Microsoft. I'm an account executive for Microsoft. And for 20 years, I work in oil and gas. I've been in different roles. I've been an executive, and I've been, doing different things. I worked also in a couple of startups, and then, I started very early on in my life. Actually, when I was 13 years old, I worked with horses, and then in a pharmacy, and then in a supermarket, like any other kid. In my country, it's legal to work early on, so I did, and then I worked for a bank. So I've done a lot of things even professionally as well. I have an MBA, and I study a lot of things. I have master in computer science as well. So, no lack of activity in my life, whether it's work or racing or family.
Yeah. And I was also checking out stuff on your YouTube, and one of the races that I saw on there, I think it was from last year, was Marathon des Sables. And one of the things you explain, I think it was in that video, it might have been a different one, is that you can do some remote work. And a lot of the times you are working remotely right at the race. Tell me, how does that work-life balance work for you? And could you do it if you didn't have remote work?
Yes. So I started doing this when I did not work remotely. And, I just, I'm very consistent. I woke up very early, and I do my first 1 hour or two. And that was the way I did it for a long time until I started working remotely. And I work remotely for several years now. And it helped me a little bit, but I still do the same. I wake up at 4:45 every day. I go in my garage and I ride my bicycle for at least an hour. And then instead of having lunch like everybody else, I go for a run. And if I cannot do it then, I do it at night. So I never get excuses. Now, people ask me all the time, hey, how do you do it? How could you travel and work? And, I'm a 24/7 guy. I actually was looking at how many days I took of vacation in the past few years, and I didn't take what I could have taken anyway. Not even 3 weeks, let's say. And with my position, I have 4 or 5. I don't know. But in every race, I go with myself or with my laptop. I keep working regardless of where I am, and I have some good stories about that because. Like I went to Kona and Ironman in Kona, and I was working until midnight before the race, and things like that. And I don't mind, and that's the way I am, and that's my personality, and it has been very effective professionally as well. I've done very well.
Yeah, and when I was watching that Marathon des Sables video, so many questions came up. You say that you don't really preview the races and stuff, but that takes a lot of pre-planning. And tell us a little bit about, I think it was your wife who was finally talked to you and said like, hey, you can't run it the way you normally do. We gotta get on and plan this.
Yeah. Well, Marathon des Sables is, if there is one race I could pick of all of them, that's the one. It's memorable in all possible ways, and it's 8 days across the desert. You have to bring whatever you can to eat, and there are some rules about it. And to be quite frank, Larry, I did almost the same I always do. Don't look until Andrea, my wife, stopped me. I think it was a month before or something. And I say, you better plan or you're not going or something like that. So, and she said, I'm going to help you. And that's what we did. We started looking quickly, okay, what do I need to buy? And it's funny because a lot of people, were planning for years, and I was like, okay, let's do it. And in that video, I show how she helped me, put all the pieces together. And it was just, I guess the most planned race that I ever done, although people could argue how much plan did I put on it. I did not look at the elevation of the race or how many hours, and none of that. I went to the race. I knew it was in Morocco.
Yeah.
I figured out all the logistics and the flights, and other than that, nothing else was planned.
And I was surprised, like you've done a number of Boston marathons and that one, you got to like get on the bus and head out to the starting line. It's early start and all that. It's 10 times worse in Morocco from what you said. Tell us about how you get to the starting line.
Yeah. Getting to the starting point it's just a nightmare. It's just as complicated as the race, actually.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about that. Is like multiple buses, nights in different places.
Yeah. Well, getting to Morocco from Houston is not that simple, first of all. But then once you get there, they take you to a hotel. The first night you are in a hotel. Then they take you to close to the camp to another hotel, and then they drive you in the bus to the what is the name of the camp, and the Jaima. And again, sometimes forgive me that I don't even remember the name, because I just go and I do it. Yes. And then I'm like, what was it? I don't know. I don't remember. I don't have time for that. I go to do the race and get it done. Right? So, but yeah, it's just very complicated for sure.
Mm. And they set up a giant camp for, I think the year you did it, there were 850 competitors, and they just set up a giant camp right there in the desert, right? Like tents and whatever. You have a nice video about going to the bathroom because they don't have porta potties out there at the starting line for you.
Yeah, you pick a high mat tent. You don't know who you're going to stay with unless you're going with other people. Many people did. I went solo. I picked the Spaniards because I have a Spanish nationality as well. And it was the right choice. They became my friends. We spoke Spanish all the time. And we have a blast, really, besides the torture of the race itself, right? But the bathroom were complication, the water, you have only a gallon of water per day for everything you need. It's just a different world altogether, right?
Yeah.
And it makes it what it is. It makes it memorable, right? You start thinking of how precious are things that you have in life, and how much you should appreciate everything you really have, because over there you don't have anything, although you choose to be there, right? So
Right. You actually did quite well in this race. Of the 850 people, you came in 44th. Like, is that normal for somebody doing their first one, or did you like really overachieve there? Is it normally the veterans that get the top 50 spots?
yeah, I don't want to be repetitive, but again, I had no plan. I just went, see what I could do. And the first day, I think I finished 40 something, and somebody said, "Oh, you are in top 50." And oh, okay, well, top 50 is the elite. I'm like, "Oh, wow, okay." Um, and then the second day, I think I finished 50 something, but I stayed in the lower 50. And the lower 50, that what happened is you start after the rest. You start like an hour and a half after, and they do that so you catch up. And
Right.
it's amazing, the feeling, because the faster people coming in the desert and going through the other, it's just an incredible feeling. After the 2-3 days, I start like caring about it. I was like, okay, I want to keep the 50th place, and I did very well. It wasn't easy. A lot of great runners and people that are used to the desert and used to all of this, and I didn't. I was just again, okay, another race, let's go. And with the one thing you probably saw there is my nutrition is also another thing I struggle with, as many other athletes. It's not something that comes natural to me to eat gels and proteins and things. So I just go with water, or I'm like a camel. I don't need much. And I just do it with a piece of salami sandwich and a piece of basin, I took some things that, that were just regular stuff. The only thing I couldn't take was a glass of wine every night. That's what I wanted. But you dream of all of that. You dream of a Coca-Cola. One day they give you one Coca-Cola.
Oh, yeah.
And you are like, oh my gosh, this is
You must be on a sugar high with that one.
Yeah.
But speaking of beverages, I see they also give you like a nice Moroccan tea at the finish line.
Yeah. It's fascinating how a tea becomes such a great. It's like gold. It's the best drink ever because there is nothing else. So they give you that tea, and I had a little bit of fun with that because I was going back and say, "Can I get another tea?" I wanted to become friend of the Moroccans there, and I did, and they gave me a little more, another couple of glasses. So I had my extra tea in my system.
Oh, good. Yeah. Another thing that I noticed, and you talked about, you did 19 races last year. At the end of your video, it says that it was dedicated to your father, who you had lost during the year. I can't imagine having such a busy year and then also having to deal with the loss of, your father, family member. How was there something about your relationship with him that helped set your mindset? And is that why you felt like, I'm going to dedicate what I'm doing the rest of the year here for him? And how did he inspire you in any way with the stuff that you've done throughout your life?
Yeah, I wasn't very close with my dad, and my dad divorced with my mom when I was very young, and we didn't have the best relationship. But and then he lived in Uruguay, and I lived here, so far away that we didn't. I did help my dad as my mom as well financially and all that. So we kept close on as much as we could. Um, my dad was sick for. I always said that my parents are Highlanders because they probably should have been dead. This sounds terrible, but even before, because I don't know how they live it because they've been. My dad was sick for like 20 years. He had the
Yeah.
diabetes and some other things, and he, I tend to think that I inherited some of these strengths. Even though he was sick, I don't know how he did it. He
Mm.
survived with nothing. So a lot of that is still in my mind, um, and he when he was younger, I can remember he has good, good. I guess physiologically he was, well said, but he smoked all his life, he drink, he
Hmm.
didn't have a healthy life, and a little bit of that is the reason why I'm the way I am. And also, it seems like I seek adversity. I had a lot of adversity when I was young,
Mm.
and in part for the divorce of my parents and the financial situation. So adversity is not new to me, and running is like no big deal. I mean, I didn't even have food when I was a kid, so not running is just as easy. And in fact, one more thing, to touch on that is that I worked in Price Waterhouse Cooper when I was 15 years old. I wear a suit and a tie, and
Oh.
I was a delivery guy for Price Waterhouse, and I study at night. But the part
Oh.
of the story that makes sense in this context is that I walk a lot to deliver all this stuff, and I
Oh
walk
yeah.
because I save instead of taking the bus, I save the money and walk to do my job. And
Yeah.
so an Ironman is nothing.
Yeah.
So anyway.
We'll be right back. Hello, listener. I love getting your feedback and suggestions for the podcast. Keep them coming at 515ultraman@gmail.com. For those that want to help me promote the show, I suggest that you tell a friend to listen to. Word of mouth is a great way for podcasts to get new listeners. And if you don't mind publishing your feelings, a free way to support the show is by leaving a 5-star rating and review on your podcast app. It's a chance to tell me what you love about the show, and it helps others discover it too. Finally, if you're so inclined, you can show your appreciation for my work by clicking the support link at the bottom of the show notes to go to my Buy Me a Coffee page. Thanks for all of your feedback and support. Now back to the show. Well, an Ironman usually leads to something else, and I know for you, that's also a number of 100-mile races. You've done, I don't know how many. You may not know how many from the sounds of it, but I'd like to talk about some of those maybe because you got the first place at the Brazos Bend 100-mile, and what's the Brazos Bend?
Well, it's here in an hour away from my house in Houston, and it's a park, and I just signed up for that race, and yes, I don't know the number, but I tell you, let me talk about the 100. That's a very good point because true story. Just yesterday, I decided to run 100 miles this Saturday, so in 2 days. Here in Huntsville, it's called Rocky Raccoon.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And and there are two reasons why I'm gonna do it, and I just signed up for it. Literally, I'm not training for 100 miles, but I guess I'm already trained. And but one of the most important reasons is that last year I tried to do the 50 mile there, and I got COVID, and I went anyway. But then after the first mile, the first lap, I said, let's go home. I'm not gonna finish this. So this is my second ever race I never finished. So I said I'm gonna do this 100 miles there, and that's that. But going back to another 100-mile races, how I started running 100 miles was most recently, a few years ago. I decided to run 100 miles by myself here from my house in the
Oh
trails
yeah.
by Memorial Park. It was to celebrate that it took me 100 days to get a job that I wanted. And I did this, and I raised money for a nonprofit. And then since then, I said, okay, I'm going to do it again. And the next year, I did it again. And the next year, I did it again. What I did was the Houston Marathon. Instead of doing it once, I did it 4 times. I started at night, and I did it 3 times until the marathon started. And then I said, okay, I'm tired of running solo. I'm going to do Brazos Bend. And I did it. And then I did it again just recently. So like in December. So 100 miles is one of the things I'm enjoying apparently as well.
I feel like you kind of just brushed over that Houston Marathon story, and we got to touch on that a bit more. So during the Houston Marathon, you decided you're just going to run more marathons before the marathon even starts, and then just show up to the starting line. Is that what you did? And was it the same route?
That's exactly what I did. I told a friend of mine, hey, can you join me for at least 1 lap? And he did for a little bit of it in a mountain bike, but otherwise I went solo through the night. And I did it 3 times. A couple of mistakes. One, I got too early to the marathon. So I had an hour, and people would think that I sat and, eat and drink, but I didn't want to do that because I knew I was going to. So I kept walking inside the area where people was waiting for the marathon, and then I ended up doing the marathon. Yeah, and it was not too bad. I did a 3 hours, 50-minute marathon after 75, so that's not bad.
Oh yeah, that's crazy. So
one more thing that was funny for that. So this is great for one of my best stories as well. Then 2 nights before the marathon, a friend of mine called me and said, "Hey, I don't see your name in the marathon." I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "Yeah, you're not registered." And I said, "Well, I registered last year." Well, So, long story short, I show up. It's sold out. I show up and I say, listen, I've done this race many times. I'm doing this 100 miles. I'm raising money for Ukraine. Can I sign up? And they figured out that I could donate money to a nonprofit and get in. And I did. And anyway, and I signed up last minute. Not many people can do that.
Yeah, no, that definitely not. So were you running around at night while they're setting up the course for the next day? Like, were there people setting up, looking at you running on the course and thinking, who's this wingnut?
You bet. That's exactly what happened. That's exactly because I mapped the route, the same route. And then when I was running, I had this similar t-shirt than this, but it said 100-mile runner. And I remember somebody passing, a lot of people on the marathon said, "Hey, are you running 100 miles? Yeah, this is my 75, 76, 78. Oh my God, you're running as fast as I am." So, yeah. Also, I had a light. I forgot to take it off through the night. I was with a light in my head, and I forgot to take it off. And somebody said, "Hey, why you have a light?" Oh, so I forgot. So I took it off.
That's great. I would like to go back to a couple of races that you mentioned earlier, just to get a little more detail as well. The mountain bike endurance races, the Trans-Portugal and the one across Costa Rica. Can you give us some more information about those? Because those sound like epic adventures to do. How many people are doing this sort of thing? Is this a crewed race? Is it stages where you just go until you get to the next stage? What are these things about?
Yeah, they're both different. Trans-Portugal, it's non-supported. You do, 70 miles, 80 miles every day through the mountains, and you finish in a hotel, and it was the best experience because the hotels were nice, the food was nice, and you can drink wine, you can drink beer, whatever, and it was amazing. There were 100 people or so on that one. very well organized. I love it. By the way, there is a good story about that one too. I signed up before COVID, and then COVID hit, and the race was canceled. And I decided during COVID to do the race in my garage, simulate the race. Oh. So I took Swift, and I simulated every day of the race as best as I could. And I did it in my garage. Every day I woke up, I was working for GE, and I woke up every day at 3 a.m. and did 6-7 hours in my garage. I have some videos on YouTube as well about this. And I did the race. And then I went, when COVID finished, I went and I did it for real.
Right.
And yeah, it was a good story about that. Sorry for the parentheses there, but yeah. La Ruta de los Conquistadores in Costa Rica is a bit shorter, but it's very hard for the conditions. It's more tropical and jungle, and it has a lot of mud. You can lose your shoe there when you're walking. You had to walk with your bike a lot. You had to drop the bike through a cliff full of mud. It's just a different experience. The hotels are not that nice, but they were okay and all that, but not as fancy as in Portugal. But amazing race, epic as well. You know, you go through volcano, and it's just impressive. I went with my wife there. She followed. They take you in a bus to follow if you wanted to. She didn't have the same experience I had, but she didn't like that race. But yeah.
Yeah. Oh, those sound like some pretty epic kind of races, because I know the people who are listening to the podcast, they're getting to the point where, you know, well, I've done Ultraman. Now what's the next big adventure I can do? And people listen to hear about these different odd things around the world. And those two definitely sound like something that people would be interested in doing that are listeners to this podcast.
Yeah. No, those are amazing adventures, you know, that if you have a chance to do it, it's amazing. So yeah, please go. And if you have questions about it, please connect with me.
Yeah, excellent. People love to connect with with the podcast guests and start picking their brains about stuff. So watch out, you might just get that. Cool. I saw another thing on your resume that I wanted to ask you about, because it's not something I've heard about before, and that is the Ironman Gold All-World Athlete. Can you explain what that is and how you earned the Gold All-World Athlete?
Yeah, so this is something Ironman started a few years ago, and basically it's a ranking of the best athletes in age group athletes, and it's I think if you are in the 10%, you are silver, and then gold, and then I don't remember the 1% is the best, and you achieve that accumulating points on the Ironman. To be frank, it's a bit unfair. Let me explain why. So if let's say you have money and you do more races, you have better chance, right? So, but it's like anything else. So it's a bit unfair. It doesn't really mean those are the best athletes ever, you know, or I think there are some races that give you more points than another one. I don't care much for those points or for becoming a gold, but, you know, of course, yes, I could brag about it, but it's a point system and a ranking system to recognize people that have been on the top.
Spent a lot of money with Ironman.
Yes, which I have as well. So.
Okay. I did want to get into asking you, you know, obviously you got your full-time job, but you have your coaching program, Forever Try. You got the shirt on. We want to get that all branded up on your bike. Some people get on there and paint them up for them. Can you tell me what might be unique about what you offer with your programs? Because there's so many, you know, triathlon coaches out there. What is it that you do? I know one of the things is you consider it to be like a wellness program that you work with in one of the streams. So tell us about what is unique to your coaching.
Yeah, motivation to do this is to encourage, influence, and make people believe that nothing is impossible, that having a balanced life is good, is better than not, and that even though you can have a full-time job, a family, and anything else, you can do this. I don't have anything special, I would say, that allows me to do this. I just have determination. I have the grit. I have the mindset, and the foundation of Forever Try is exactly that: is to help people to achieve the impossible, regardless. I have coach and mentor people that never ride a bicycle or never thought they could do these things, Ironman or half Ironman or a marathon, and it brings so much joy to my life to see people doing these things. And so that's how it started. And I started helping friends, and then people didn't follow what I was suggesting, so I started doing it for real, and I started charging them. So if you charge them some money, then they do it, right? So, and then I became more serious about it. I have developed a wellness program that my dream is to implement that wherever, and be an influencer really for wellness, for health. I said earlier, my dad had diabetes. They smoke. Both my parents smoke all their life.
Right.
And they didn't have a healthy life, and it's a choice, right? It's a lifestyle, and the lifestyle I choose is this one, and those are the fundamentals. And of course, I explain some of the things I believe on. I'm an Ironman certified coach. I'm a USA triathlon certified coach, and I've done all these things. And I don't always follow what's out there. I'm a bit an outlier, right? I coach and mentor people to think differently. For example, don't look at your watch that much. It doesn't really matter. You don't want to be a professional on this. You want to be good. Well, okay, enjoy the ride. So, and there are a lot of different things, peculiar things on the way I influence others and train others that are, slightly different here and there. People take a bunch of groups to run a marathon. I saw them in Houston Marathon the other day. They had, I think, gels in there. You don't need all of that. I approve of that. So anyway, that's the kind of the approach I take to this.
And I saw one of the other things that you offer, which I don't see necessarily a lot of people offering, and that is like some kind of virtual meetups for training as well. Tell me about that.
Yeah, that started with COVID, of course. So people couldn't make. So again, with the no excuse mentality, I started doing Swift and invited people and to join me on my virtual rides. Then most recently, I created an app that is a Forever Try app. It's free to download. And basically the app allows me to put trainings for people, like a training peaks kind of scenario, but also to do meetups. And that's, we were using a WhatsApp like everybody is, and I was tired of that. And I decided that my app will have a meetup functionality. And, every weekend or when I do clinics, many of them are free anyway. So if you are in the area, please join me. And I do meetups, and the app allows me to put where it is and who's coming, who's not. And so virtual is something from COVID, which is a good result of COVID, I would say, because you can, if you're a busy person like me, I don't have time to go an hour away to start my bike ride. I do it from here. So I do a lot of Swift. I think my level is like 80 in Swift. At some point, Swift used to be up to level 50, and they stopped, and then they created more levels, I guess, for people like me that went further. So.
Breaking the limits.
Breaking the limits, exactly.
That's great. Yeah. Well, listen, Fernando, I've really enjoyed having you on here to tell us about all of these epic events that you take part in. I feel like we only just touched the surface on a lot of them, but hopefully it's given the listener, a number of different events to now put into their list of places to go to the website and check them out and see what those races are all about. And like you said, if people want to contact you, you're open to having them contact you and get the information and find out what you did when you went there. Your whole approach is obviously completely different than the people out there that are counting every calorie and marking every mile and knowing exactly when the next hill's coming. But I think it really resonates with a lot of the people that are probably doing Ultraman. It's the people that aren't out there to win. They're out there to accomplish a feat. And they do it by feel. They don't always do it by the numbers. So I think maybe you're a good person to inspire those type of athletes as well.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for having me. And yes, look, just to clarify, people is different, right? It doesn't mean that because I don't need gels, anybody did. So I know that's people. Armando, our friend that you mentioned at the beginning, he's very different than me, and it works for him, and that's fine. One thing I want everybody to take of this conversation from me is that, I started this when I was 37. I'm 51 now. And one of the decisions I made is to do this and enjoy the ride. And, I try for the most part not to get stressed about the calories and the time. And, why? I'm not going to be a pro anyway. And even if I was, I would totally do it differently. But so that's part of the message I want out there. It's possible, regardless of who you are or where you are. It's all about not having excuses, be consistent. We didn't talk about training much, but I train in zone 2 most of the time. I don't go hard all the time. People is intimidated by running with me. They shouldn't, because I can run as low as you want. But when it race time, I go hard. So, but it's about enjoying the journey, enjoying the reasons for doing this, So, and the more people that can think that way, the better they'll be as individuals and professionally as well. All of these have helped me to have determination in my job and focus and be energized and happy. So,
yeah. Well, it seems like a great philosophy and a great lifestyle to live by. You're clearly very happy. You're getting it done. You come first in your age group all the time. You're going to world championships. You've done 200 races. It must work for you, and maybe it works for others too.
Yes. Oh,
anyway, right. Thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you so much, Larry. Looking forward for the next one.
Hey, if you liked what you heard today, please tell a friend and be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. We'd appreciate it if you'd rate and review the show while you're there. Drop the names of the people you think we should interview, and we'll get in touch with them and make that happen. Thank you for listening to 515, the Ultra Podcast, a production of 55 Enterprises.